How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am back with another comic book video, and this time we're going to be doing a Golden Age review. Now, if I told you that I was going to be doing a review of a spider-themed superhero who actually spins and swings from webs and also makes quips while fighting of enemies, you're automatically going to think of Spider-Man. But I'll tell you, she's not Spider-Man. Yes, that's right. A female-themed spider superhero that uses webs and swings from them and fights crime. Wow, this might have been a bit of a precursor. It may have been a precursor, but she only was in 3 issues. She wasn't the main feature. Her first appearance was actually a backup issue with an origin story, interestingly enough, but after that she was in the middle of the issue. So she could have been a precursor to this guy up on the wall here, Spider-Man, but with the limited appearances, it's hard to say. Now, bear with me, I'm going to go over the panels. Some of the wording, some of the text and wordings are odd. It's almost like they wanted to do more than was actually being shown. And some of the readings I'm looking at that going, okay, what? But I'll point out some of those things as we go over this one. They're short stories, so let's go ahead and cover all 3 appearances. The Spider Queen, Sharon Kane, first appeared in Eagle Comics number 2 in 1941. One of the interesting things about her is she's actually one of about a dozen female superheroes who appeared before Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman appeared in December of 1941. It looks like the Spider Queen may have premiered in November of 1941. Before we get into her story, she was said to be created by Elsa Lissau, who is not actually a real person. It is believed that the creator of Spider Queen was done by the Chavignou brothers, which I probably just completely butchered that name, Luis and Arturo, and they have other claims to fame as Luis, however you want to pronounce it, created the Red Raven, and Arturo created Captain Freedom. That's just a little bit of information I thought would be interesting. So let's get with the first appearance. Now, when I saw the first introductory page here, I thought it was just, the splash page where they put the name and the hero shows up. And it kind of is, but at the same time, what's going on the splash page is actually part of the story. That's not usually the case. Usually the splash is independent from the actual story. It's just a way to show off the superhero. So a couple of guys are running out of a bank, and one of them gets brought down, and we learn that this guy in a blue suit is a security guard. Now, this guy walking in a pinstripe suit gets alerted to the noise because it's supposed to be quiet. He says, "What's that sound? Sounds like a lot of shouting for a quiet day. Suppose it might be ... And we find out that this is a young detective. He makes it to the scene, realizes it was a bank robbery, and he apprehends the crook and the money, and he sees and he looks, look at that filament. I bet I know whose work this is. He calls it a filament. He doesn't even call it a web, which it obviously is. Now he takes the evidence to the chief of police, and he asks the chief, have you shown this to anybody else? He says, no, it's just you. He goes, Well, we're going to keep this an interdepartmental matter, so keep it quiet. We learn that the chief is actually part of the robbery gang. Now the chief gets mad that he knows that the Spider Queen is in this somehow, and the detective tries to figure out why the chief is so angry, and we get the Spider Queen's origin. We found out that she was married to an older man, and his name is Henry Kane. And as they're doing testing, let's see, he's working for the government. I guess some crooks come in and shoot him, and she was out of the office at the time, and when she comes back, she starts going through the notes, and she finds this web fluid. She tests it out, and she says, my word, it sticks like glue, and it's actually strong enough to swing on. So she makes these device that's connected to her wrist who allows her to shoot webs. Wow, anybody see this? Okay, these stories are actually pretty involved if you take a look at this. Fox didn't like to jump pretty quickly. They like to include a lot. So Spider-Woman in her civilian identity makes sure that she runs into the detective in the pinstripe suit. Now, he escorts Sharon Kane home because she says that she stumbled and she doesn't know if she can make it. And while he's there, I can't believe he says this, but this is weird. Gee, that's not a bad little doll. I like the cute, fluffy type. I don't even know how to respond to that. I mean, what? Okay, so the Spider Queen shows up, and she says, well, what are you doing here when the chief is over at this address? And she leaves away very quickly, and he says, ow, my shin, because he apparently should have hit his shin. He got up so quickly, which does have something to do with the rest of the story. Now, she changes back into her civilian clothes so quickly it's worthy of a Superman. He pours her a cup of tea. He says he has another date. He shows, and then he excuses himself, shows up at the warehouse. They knock him out. Spider Queen shows up, and this is a real weird one. The chief of police looks out, and they say, hey, look, we're surrounded by cops, and they've got the judge and the district attorney with them. What kind of judge and district attorney shows up at a crime scene, an active crime scene? Well, anyways, the Spider Queen is there to make sure that nothing goes wrong. The chief tries to get away. She webs his feet. The detective catches him. And then the story comes to an end. Sharon's reading the paper and says that she suspects that the detective will be along to tell her the story shortly. And that's the end of the story. Okay, I'm going to shorten these next two a little bit. In this one, Sharon Kane happens to stumble on where the scene of the crime will be taking place. And of course, that's classic for these Golden Age stories. So she thinks that there is something going on, and when she walks out, she sees the detective that we know in a pinstripe suit, Detective Mike O'Bell. So she makes an excuse to get escorted back to her apartment, and keep in mind, he's wearing a blue suit. Now, he goes back to the scene and wants to investigate the situation, and she returns as Spider-Girl and reveals that the man that was being held there got tied up. And as he tries to stop her, she webs him up. Let's see, the bad guys return. She subdues them, and the detective is safe as she leaves, and they follow her. He wakes up, and he's wearing a purple suit. I think somebody forgot. Now, he investigates the situation and returns to Sharon's apartment to try and convince her, since she is fluffy, that if she could talk to the shop owner, she might be able to get them to reveal where the shop owner had been taken. Now she goes back to Spider-Woman, does find the information, and gives it to the detective, who is now in a blue suit again. Now he runs into a little bit of trouble, and Spider-Girl attempts to save the day. Well, Spider-Girl does save the day. He gets in a boat, and because the address was on a lake, he gets into a boat, which the motor doesn't work. Spider-Girl subdues the adversaries, and just as the detective and the old man are walking away, Sharon says that she happened to pull up because she was just driving down the road. And they all drive off together. And last panel says, well, that was close, Shannon, but you got away with it that time. Will Mike catch on next time? Wait and see. Now, in the last story, we learned that a villain called the Noose is on the loose. I did not mean to rhyme that. There's no better way to say that. Now, the detective tells Sharon that as if it was any of her business. Now, she figures that the Noose is going to go after the person who puts him in jail, and she is absolutely right. Now, she shows up in time to rescue the judge and finds a way to communicate with the proper authorities, and by the time the authorities get there, the Noose is gone. Now, they find a woman hung the next morning, and there's a note that says it's Spider-Woman. Now, Sharon, of course, says, hey, that's not me. So she goes down there and checks and realizes that it was another tenant in her apartment house, and it's, in fact, not her. So she gets emotional, and she decides to go to a scene of the crime, or a scene where I guess she thinks the Noose is at, and follows him. And as she gets there, she finds out that the Noose is actually there, and they engage in something of a battle. She keeps using her webs to try and get at him, and he keeps using a chair to deflect them. Finally, she kicks him in the face, lands on a loose floorboard, and he gets a noose around her. And by that time, the detective suddenly shows up, as we have no idea how he found the place. So he fights the Noose, and the Noose gets a pitchfork. So he abandons his main weapon, goes for the pitchfork. Now, as he is about to do the pitchfork, this is weird. It says, the Noose is about to finish his hideous job. My game all around this time, which is a weird thing to say. And then it says, with a quick jerk, tears the pitchfork from his hand. Huh? Saved by the gong, I guess. I don't know what in the world he's talking about. There is no gong, bang, reference to it, but I don't even know. It's just unusual. So he knocks out the Noose, and they put his hands in handcuffs, which he suddenly has claws. I didn't know that was a thing the whole time. He looked like an old man, but now his hands are green and he has claws. Spider-Woman gets away just in the nick of time. He shows up back at Sharon, so I guess they're sort of in a relationship now. She's glad that the Noose has been caught. And she said somehow she had a hunch that this wasn't the Spider-Woman, and the detective's like, oh yeah? And then it says, yes, the Spider Queen's still around. Look for her in the next issue of Eagle Comics. There's no more Eagle Comics. This is the last one. They only had 4 issues. This was the only thing she's appeared in. No one else has done anything with her. I mean, she didn't even appear in Femforce by AC Comics, which Femforce seemed to get a lot of Golden Age heroes for their Femforce, but she was never part of it. So this is the last we see of her. Well, the idea of a non-powered superhero using extra means and basing themselves on the name based on those means isn't that unusual. Spider Queen? It's not an unusual concept. I mean, Spider King, the Web, Alias the Spider. We had a number of spider-themed heroes back then. But anyways, I hope you liked this video. I hope that you've learned about a hero that 3 issues is pretty obscure. Until next time, I'll be seeing you.